Hello everybody, Dr. Nellie here. I just wanted to have a quick chat today about training methodology. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart and something that comes up at almost every behavior consult I have. So I have a whole page on my website dedicated to how to find a trainer for your dog and why certain methods are more effective and more fun and safe for your dog than others. So something that I see very commonly is the use of certain tools in training, such as e-collars or shock collars, choker chains, pinch chains, alpha rolls, and other techniques that we think show our dogs that we are dominant, or dogs show our dogs that when they do a behavior that's undesirable, the consequence is something unpleasant, in the hopes that that is going to stop that behavior and help them improve. So again, this is something near and dear to my heart because I, like so many of my clients, have in the past used training techniques that I would never recommend for any dog, cat, or any other animal, including humans. But it's something that is very, very common in our society, and something that is really easy to get your hands on in terms of finding a dog trainer. It's very common. And so I see, again, a lot of clients who have used these techniques and had a trainer come out and use certain techniques. And then, of course, I'm seeing them for a behavior consult in the future. So the types of training that I recommend using are, we'll talk about one today, and that's positive reinforcement. So positive reinforcement is fantastic because what we're doing is we're setting up this chain of events where a certain behavior occurs, and then there's a consequence to that behavior. And we want to increase the likelihood of behaviors that we like by following up with a consequence that is really awesome. So if we like when our dog does something cute and cocks their head to the side and puts their ears up, we give them a treat and they start to do that behavior more and more. If we like when our dog settles on his bed and chews a bone while we have guests over, we reward that with a treat each time we see it, and that behavior becomes a default. And we see that more and more frequently. If we want our dog to stop pulling on leash, and each time they make eye contact with us, we give them a treat, we're going to see that behavior occur more commonly. Many of the techniques that are popular out there, on TV, or trainers that you can find in Columbus and all over the country really, are techniques that seem really effective. They seem like they have really quick results and really awesome results, and it's kind of this wow, like, oh my gosh, this red zone dog is all of a sudden acting perfect, and those behaviors are gone, and the family is so happy, and everything's great. And so I talked to all my clients, and most of them have seen, okay, I did these alpha rolls, these dominance downs, or I used a shock collar or a choker chain, and he got worse. He seemed to do better at first, and now he's worse, and these techniques aren't working. And sometimes I hear, and I really don't want to have to do that to my dog, to have him do those behaviors less. I don't want to scare him, I don't want to hurt him, but I just didn't know what else to do. And this is what the trainer that I found, who looks really successful and has had great results, this is what they told me to do, and I thought I needed to do this to stop those behaviors that I didn't like and get the behaviors that I did want. So we're going to talk a little bit about why that looks so appealing to us. So, the first thing is when we use positive punishment, basically, again, back to that chain of events. So we see a behavior and it's followed up with a consequence. So if we see a behavior like growling and lunging when a dog sees another dog or an unfamiliar person or bicycle, whatever it is, when they see that and they growl, bark, and lunge, we use that painful or scary stimulus. So a jerk on the neck, a shock delivered to their neck, or any other technique, yelling their name, something that your dog finds unpleasant, more unpleasant than the sight of this other dog or person that potentially causes anxiety and fear for them. It inhibits that behavior. So it may look really effective. So at first we see that the dog stops growling, stops lunging, and we think, oh my gosh, this is so effective. We get those immediate results, and it feels so good to have that control over your dog and to be able to stop those behaviors that we've found so frustrating in the past. But then oftentimes, we get this plateau where they get better, and then all of a sudden something really scary happens, and we see this. I hear, well, then out of the blue, all of a sudden, with no warning, he bit someone, and and I hear that a lot. And so when we look at positive punishment, what we're doing again is we're doing something that is really scary or painful to our dog that makes them stop doing that behavior we don't like. So the growling, barking, lunging, for example, at a bicycle, a kid, whatever. And so they're more afraid of what we're going to do to them than they are of what that approaching kid or bicycle, etc., is going to do to them. So what that does in their brain is it says, well, when I see that other dog walking down the street, something really painful and scary happens, and I'm gonna stop growling because it hurts when I growl, but now I'm even more afraid because every time this happens, my owner freaks out and gets really worried and yells at me and does something painful. So in their mind, they're actually getting more and more fearful. But on the outside, when we're not paying attention to subtle cues of anxiety and fear, it looks as if they're getting better. So we see them stop to growl, bark, lunge. But then over time, we're just changing that emotional response, that pathway in their brain, so that every time they see that dog or person approach, they think, oh my gosh, I need to be really scared, but I can't growl or bark. And then eventually, we're gonna have a situation where a person comes up to your dog, and a little kid comes up to your dog, and your dog in the past has growled, barked, lunged to communicate, I am not comfortable with that child. But now they don't feel comfortable enough growling and barking because they've been punished for it. So we see potentially them getting into the situation where they're really uncomfortable, really anxious, really fearful, but they have no way to communicate that. And so we see that explosive aggression. We see it, out of the blue, all of a sudden with no warning. And you see, potentially a child getting bit. And that is really scary, obviously, and really dangerous. So that is the main reason I don't recommend using those training methods, especially for dogs that show fear and anxiety, have a history of aggression, because oftentimes, most often, aggression is rooted in fear. It's not because your dog is trying to be dominant over you. That's a whole other conversation that we won't talk about today. But it's because they're afraid and they're trying to communicate, I'm not comfortable with this. I need some space. Please go away. Leave me alone. So positive punishment, again, can cause that inhibition of behaviors where it looks like they're doing so much better. We see them calm, relaxed, submissive, but in reality they're feeling just as afraid, but they're not able to communicate that. So what I tell owners is, instead of punishing your dog for a growl, thank them. Say, thank you for communicating your need for space. Thank you for telling me that you need me to change the situation. You need me to stop someone from approaching you. You need me to take you out of this party environment if you're having a party in your home, and you need me to give you a safe place. Thank you for growling and giving me that communication. And then, of course, learning even more subtle cues, licking the lips, yawning, lifting up a paw, shaking off when they're not wet, panting, refusing to take treats. And I have a whole page on my website all about body language, so feel free to check that out too, to learn even more subtle methods of communication that you see before you get that growl. So that's another reason, as well as, oftentimes I hear, and I know most people, they don't want that relationship. They don't want to have to hurt their dog. They don't want to have to cause fear or pain. That hurts that bond that you share with your pet. And most people don't want that. They want their dog to trust them and feel comfortable with them and to be happy. So the reason I recommend positive reinforcement is because, again, we're telling the dog what we want them to do. instead of what we don't want them to do. So, same with us. If we're trying to learn something new and it's just always, no, don't do that. No, don't do this. Don't do that. That's wrong. It's very frustrating because we don't know what we should be doing. But when we get that clear instruction, yes, do this thing, that is good. We're able to get a little bit more direction and figure out what we're supposed to do. So positive reinforcement is great for that. It's also fantastic because it strengthens that bond that you share with your dog. You're going to be helping them gain confidence with you and with their surroundings, as well as build trust between the two of you. So another reason I like positive reinforcement is because we're also going to be using something called classical counter conditioning. So what that means is when your dog is afraid of a bicycle, a child, another dog approaching, for example, and they growl and bark and lunge at said target, we're going to give them a treat. And I hear all the time, oh, he's growling, he's barking. Are you sure I should give him a treat? I don't want him to continue to bark and growl. And you'll see that every time your dog barks and growls, if you give him a really tasty treat, it has to be something awesome like a hot dog, a little bit of peanut butter, cream cheese, fresh chicken, cheese, whatever your dog loves in a small amount. You give them something. You may continue to see a little bit of barking, but over time, you're going to see that bark change. So it's going to change from this really fearful, aggressive sounding bark to a more relaxed and hopeful bark, like, ooh, if I bark, I might get a treat. So what we're doing and why we're seeing that change is because we're changing those emotional pathways from I need to be afraid because that dog, that bicycle is approaching, my owner usually gets really nervous and upset and bad things happen to me and my neck hurts. We're changing that response of fear and anxiety to relaxation. And when dogs approach, when bicycles approach, treats rain from the sky. That is what we're training them. And so we're going to see those behaviors change. We're going to see less of those behaviors happen, but for a good reason. So it's not because they're inhibited and they have to hide how they feel. It's because they are truly relaxed and looking forward to the approach of that thing that used to scare them. So again, positive reinforcement, classical counter conditioning is so awesome because, again, it strengthens that bond. It helps your dog know what to do instead of always telling them what not to do, and changes that underlying emotional response from fear to relaxation and happiness. There are all kinds of tools that are really safe, really effective. So ranging from gentle leaders that go around the nose and help control your dog and in more of a way help you guide your dog's attention back on you so that you can get them those treats and help them focus on you when you're doing that training, to freedom harnesses, which are fantastic, instead of using those other tools. And I know a lot of people are afraid because they're like, I have to have the pinch collar, I have to have the choker or the e-collar because it's just too scary when I don't have it on. I need that. But gentle leaders and front clip, freedom harnesses are really effective tools. And especially if you have a leash clipped to the gentle leader as well as to the freedom harness, you're going to have 2 points of contact. So if you're afraid your dog is going to slip away, you have 2 ways to keep them from getting away from you. It gives you more security. If you want to leave that choker chain on up front but not use it, but you just have it for comfort until you work through that training, that's great. The other thing that's important is you don't want to put your dog in that situation where he feels so anxious or fearful that he needs to reach for that growling, barking, lunging. You want to keep, walks at a time when it's low-key in the morning, going to a place where there aren't going to be a lot of dogs, bikes, kids, etc., so that your dog isn't exposed to that, isn't forming new negative memories about seeing other people until you work through that training with a science-based, humane, force-free trainer that uses positive reinforcement and other science-based techniques, or you're seeing a veterinarian or veterinary behaviorist to help you work through those issues. So up front, you always use that management. I don't want to go too much into that. I've already gone further than I should and I wanted today. But, again, I just wanted to talk quickly about why positive punishment looks so appealing, why it feels so good for us to use those techniques, but why it's really actually making matters worse, and why we should use other techniques such as positive reinforcement and classical counter conditioning to help our dogs learn that those things that scare them are okay and they don't need to be afraid. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below in the video. And again, check out my website. It's petsandpeopleinharmony.com. And under the education tab, I have a whole web page on trainers and tools, as well as a whole page on body language. So this can help you find a trainer who, again, uses science-based, force-free, fun techniques. And it'll help you learn how to use those safe tools that I talked about. And also that body language page that'll help you learn behaviors that you'll see before that growl, so that you can help your dog communicate with you more effectively and prevent them from being in those situations that do cause them fear, anxiety, and stress. Alrighty, I had fun chatting today. I hope you enjoyed what we talked about. If you have any suggestions for future talks, let me know. And again, any questions or concerns, leave them below. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.